to 28 of the 63 US national parks, and I definitely plan on adding to this list. But for the meantime, I thought it'd be good to rank my favorite to least favorite national park. Obviously, this list is subjective, so I just want to preface this by saying that some of the parks I didn't spend lots of time in. Whether it could be a factor in the rankings, and also visiting during a busy period might also affect the ranking. I would love to be corrected in the comments below, so let me know what park I got wrong, because I would love an excuse to go back and visit. Also, some of the parks that I visited were before I had a YouTube channel, so some of the videos that I have are just in portrait mode, or I just have pictures. I'm also going to give specific ratings for each park, including the amount of wildlife, 10 being the most wildlife, how crowded it is, 10 being the most crowded, diversity of landscape, 10 being the most biodiverse, and how easy it is to get to, 10 being the most accessible. So without further ado, let's get to it. This probably isn't a surprise because I wouldn't exactly consider Gateway Arch to be a traditional park like all the others. I would consider it more of a point of interest. It's in the middle of St. Louis, so it's kind of more of like a park within a city. You can go up into the arch, but I was with my parents and we also had our dogs with us, so we weren't able to go up. You can have leash pets in the park. I'm sure it would be cool to go up into the arch, but I just wouldn't rank it anywhere near the rest of the parks on this list. Petrified Forest is a pretty small national park, but it houses some of the oldest petrified wood in the world. I really enjoyed walking around the trails and looking at the wood up close, but there's not much else to do in the park. The trails are all pretty spread out and you have to drive in between all the different points of interest, so it mostly just consisted of driving and getting out of your car, looking around, getting back in the car, driving to the next spot. You can bring dogs on the trails, which is great because normally you can't bring dogs in any trails in national parks. There's a wilderness area where you can do some backcountry camping, which I would be interested in doing if we ever went back. The landscape is really bare and the temperatures are really extreme between summer and winter. They also have some petroglyphs, which are Native American rock drawings. It's about a 2.5-hour drive from Phoenix, and I will tell you right now that the climate is very different, so make sure you check the weather before you go. I so wish that I could rank this higher on the list, but nature just was not on our side when we went to visit. Hawaii volcanoes is constantly changing, so there's a high chance that every visit will look different. When we went, there had just been a huge eruption that changed a lot of the trails and the viewing platforms, so we weren't actually able to see any of the molten lava. We were only able to see a little bit of a glow in the distance. We did go for a hike in one of the lava fields during the day, and that was fun. But I find that once you've hiked one volcano, you've hiked them all. I'd love to go back and see some of the lava flow, which inevitably will change the trails in some way. Also keep in mind that the island of Hawaii actually does have some elevation, and the highest point gets snow in the winter, so be prepared with extra layers. We saw so many people at night that went to go see the lava just wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and it was easily 50 degrees with a wind chill. I actually feel kind of bad for ranking hot springs this low because the nature surrounding is actually really beautiful, especially in the summer. But I will say I really enjoyed my time here. But when I compare hot springs to other parks, it's just not really in the same league. Hot Springs is essentially a park within the town of Hot Springs, Arkansas. And the town itself really has a lot of cool historic sites. There are a few small trails that surround the town, and you can bring leash pets on the trails. I went in the middle of summer and it was really hot, really humid. So I left pretty early in the morning so Strider and I wouldn't die of heat stroke. If I were to rank this park solely on the town, I actually would rank it pretty high because it's just a really nice place to visit. I think one of the reasons why I've rated this as high as it is just because I love saguaro cacti. I grew up on the East Coast and we don't really have desert plants. And when I think of a cactus and you think of the desert, it's always like that classic, cactus shape. It's the saguaro cactus. So I just love that there are areas preserving this iconic cactus. There's a really high concentration here, and the park is split into two different areas, with the city of Tucson, Arizona in the middle. That's probably the part of the park that I like the least. They do have a problem with pollution because it's so close to a city. We did some dispersed camping outside the park, and we were still in the middle of all these saguaro cacti. It was so beautiful. I don't know why, but I never took a picture of it, which is so annoying because we literally had my car in the roof nest and the saguaro cacti all around me. You just have to trust me. It was so cool looking. I even woke up the next morning and while I was walking around, I almost stepped on a western diamondback rattlesnake, which was equally terrifying and amazing. We went in July, so the crowds weren't really a problem. We just started our hikes really early in the morning. This is another park that has been placed a little lower, unfortunately, due to crowds. It's not really its fault, it's just kind of the layout of the park. The majority of the park is in a canyon, which means there's only one road in, one road out, which adds to the crowds and the number of cars that can get into the park. There's a shuttle bus that runs most of the year. You can find parking inside the park, but you have to get there really early. Or you can park outside the park in the nearby town for an extortionate amount of money. I wanted to park at the visitor center, which meant that we had to get up before sunrise. And even though it was a random day in October, the parking lot was nearly full by the time we got there at 5:30. So if that doesn't say how busy it gets, I don't know what does. Zion is famous for two famous hikes, Angel's Landing and the Narrows. We didn't have any time this morning to rent any gear to go into the Narrows because I know you need a lot of waterproof gear. So we're just doing the hike that's basically above the Narrows, and we also brought some water shoes. So we might just go into the Virgin River just a little bit, just to kind of get a taste of what the Narrows is, but not do an extended hike because we don't have the right gear for that. We wanted to camp inside the park, but it was completely full, so we had to camp outside in a dispersed camping area. And as you can probably see from my other videos, we have done a lot of dispersed camping or off-grid camping. So I feel like I have a lot of experience in saying this. This was the busiest dispersed camping I have ever seen. You can only actually set up your camp in really specific spots. We drove around for about an hour in the dark trying to find something. It was really stressful, and I was worried that we wouldn't even be able to find anything. I think we literally found the last spot at about 9 p.m. We did see some kangaroo rats though, so that was cool. I still enjoyed my time in Zion. The canyon is really unique looking, but I feel like all the measures they have to put in place to avoid overcrowding just kind of made me feel like a little bit more like Disneyland than a national park. Sorry. Joshua Tree is home to a unique kind of yucca, and they're found all over the park with other types of interesting desert plants. Since it's the closest park to where I lived in San Diego, I was able to go a few times. But because it's a 2 to 3 hour drive from most Southern California cities, it's pretty crowded. I've been in every season of the year, and I'd highly recommend winter or early spring. And if you time it right, you can see the desert blooms, which is really stunning to see in a desert landscape. There's some unique trails where you can see some cool rock formations, you can do some bouldering. There's also some deserted mines. And if you like deserts, this is definitely the park for you. There's also some great dispersed camping that's just outside of the park. So if you can't get any camping reservations, that's a really good alternative. Even in the area where we were dispersed camping, we got to see desert foxes. Although they were really, really cute, it's kind of sad because obviously they're coming into the campsite because they've gotten food before. So just make sure all your food is packed away. It's close to the towns of Joshua Tree and even Palm Springs, so towns are pretty close by, so you can get all your supplies. White Sands is a really unique park in that it has the largest deposit of gypsum sand in the entire world. They've formed into these beautiful sand dunes due to the different kinds of wind, and it's really beautiful, it's really unique, and I love that there are no designated trails, so you are just free to roam the dunes. It's incredible for photography, but unfortunately I was still a very new photographer, but my photos that I took are just super overexposed, so they're not very good. We were lucky enough to be there around sunset, so we were really lucky to see all the different colors over the dunes. You can also sand sled there, but we were too late in arriving, and so we weren't able to actually rent a sled. But definitely something fun to do with kids, or kids at heart like me. There's a town about 20 minutes away, so it's not too far removed, but the town isn't massive, but it's just enough to get you some supplies if you need any. Arches National Park holds the highest concentration of natural arches in the world. It's also one of the busiest national parks, which is probably why I've ranked this on the lower end. There is a reservation system put in place during the busier seasons, so keep that in mind if you go during a busy period. Hello and welcome to Arches National Park. The last time I was here with my parents, and it was August, so it's really, really interesting to be here at a completely different time of year. It's been really cold. It was snowing a little bit on the trail earlier, and it's been raining, and as you can see, I've got all my layers on. All of the red colors and different shapes of the hoodoos and arches were incredible to look at, and I definitely won't forget the views while driving through the park. It's about 20 minutes from the closest town of Moab, so it's easily accessible, although Moab is really the only town for several hours in all directions. Canyonlands is, not surprisingly, filled with canyons. They were formed due to the Colorado River, and there's canyons all over the park. It's close to Arches, so it's kind of a similar landscape, but it's way less busy due to its size. It's divided into 4 different areas, and they have to be accessed from all different entrances, which makes it impossible to visit the whole park in a day. I really enjoyed seeing the vast canyons, which are everywhere, and admiring the views. So you think that I'd be all arched out after going to Arches yesterday, but I think that Mesa Arch is maybe my favorite one we've seen, because you look through and you look down and it's literally just a massive, massive drop down. Damn, that is so impressive. I understand why that is one of the most popular spots to stop at here. And I'm ranking this park higher than Arches National Park due to it's just having more space and less crowds, but it's pretty similar. It's just about quadruple the size. Bryce Canyon has the largest concentration of hoodoos, which are these like spirally rock formations. These irregular rock formations make Bryce Canyon really unique and popular. My one trip that I made here was especially unique because we visited during a massive snowstorm. There really weren't that many other brave souls out there. I wanted to come to Bryce Canyon. This was the one national park that I was really, really looking forward to coming to because I really wanted to see the hoodoos and all the pictures of them. It looks absolutely amazing and so interesting and unique. And this is what our view is of the hoodoos. That's it. I've had friends that visited and said that Bryce Canyon is their favorite of all the Utah national parks, and I'm ranking it high because I feel like this definitely would have been one of my favorites. So that's why it's probably ranked a little bit lower because of the snowstorm. Some of the trails were closed, the roads were closed, and we couldn't really see a lot of the viewpoints. At some points when the snow cleared though, there were some beautiful views, which makes me think that it would be high on my list. Bryce Canyon is kind of far from any large town, and the only town nearby is kind of small, so it's a little bit out of the way. The Channel Islands are located off the Southern California coast and consist of 5 islands. You have to take a ferry in order to get out onto the islands, so you're pretty dependent on the boat schedule depending on the time of the year. Yeah, so the boat took us about 2 hours to get out here, which I think is longer than normal because there was so much marine life that we could see. So the captain kept stopping and letting us look at the dolphins. It was really beautiful. We had a ferry booked from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. from Ventura, and I thought that would be plenty of time to see the island. But once we were actually set free on the island to do explorations of our own, we only had about 3 hours, and that was kind of disappointing. You can camp at any of the islands year-round, so maybe that would be a better option if you want to spend some more time exploring. Because they are islands, they have formed really unique ecosystems all over thousands of years, and we were able to see some of the endemic plants and animal species on the island. Because the crowds are controlled due to the ferries and the reservation system put in place to buy boat tickets, it really can't become that overcrowded, so that's kind of a bonus. Great Smoky Mountain National Park is located in East Tennessee in the Appalachian Mountains, which is one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. It's easily accessible and one of the largest national parks on the East Coast, which is why it is one of the most visited in the US. I've been to this park a lot in the past. I actually lived in Knoxville, Tennessee for several years, so I used to visit it all the time. But this was before I really took any pictures or videos or anything, so I really don't have a lot of evidence that I've been there. So I haven't really been in the last decade, and so I can't really speak for the busyness of the park, but I know that the amount of crowds are famous now. Dominic and I had a trip planned to go camping there for several days a couple summers ago, but COVID got in the way of that, so we weren't able to go. Mount Rainier is an iconic active volcano in Washington state. It's located just a couple hours south of Seattle. The park can get pretty busy in the summer, so there's a reservation system put in place to avoid overcrowding. We went in January and the park wasn't busy at all. It was so beautiful to visit in the snow. We didn't get to see any wildlife, unfortunately, but I'm assuming that's just because it was winter. But I'd love to go back and visit it at another time of the year because I do love a good mountainous park. Great Sand Dunes National Park is home to the tallest sand dunes in North America. It's extremely diverse and includes grasslands, wetlands, alpine lakes, tundras, and of course, sand dunes. The park also sits between 8,000 and almost 12,000 feet, so it's a lot higher elevation than you might expect. Man, this elevation is still not a joke. So out of breath. Wow, that wasn't even a big dune. Similar to White Sands National Park, you can also rent sand sleds outside the park and go sledding down the dunes, which we didn't get to do. I was visiting with my sister-in-law, and unfortunately we just got to the park too late. I'm sensing a pattern here. So make sure you get there early in the day if you want to have some time for some sand sledding. The park is also not really near anything. It's a little far from any larger towns, the closest one being about 2 hours away. Because of the distance, it really wasn't that crowded. I'm not sure what it's like in peak season, but we went in October. I've rated this park high on my list because the landscape and biodiversity of the park is just stunning. Yeah, this is just insane, the closer you get. crazy these dunes look. It was so strange to be surrounded by snow-capped mountains and the beautiful aspen trees while running around barefoot on sand dunes. It was just such a unique experience, and I really enjoyed our visit there. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see any wildlife there, but I'm assuming it's just because of the landscape is so exposed around there. Okay, so now I really feel like I'm getting into some of my favorite national parks. Sequoia is half to two national parks that are right next to each other, but they both are a little bit different, so I'm going to talk about them separately. Sequoia is home to the largest trees on Earth, and seeing them in person is worth the visit alone. There are stunning views of canyons and foothills, and the roads are really windy to get up to the trees, and they gain a lot of elevation. So be prepared with layers even in the summer. There have been a lot of wildfires that have destroyed sequoia groves in recent years, and it takes a long time to recover from serious wildfires, so just keep that in mind when you're picking out your trails. Also, be sure to check the conditions of the roads during the winter and the early spring period, since they can get a lot of snowfall and areas of the park may be closed. But keep in mind that most people go just to see General Sherman, which is the largest tree by volume in the world. If you want to get away from the crowds, there are loads of other areas in the park that you can see sequoias as well. I've been to the Grand Canyon a couple of times, and although nothing compares to the first time that you see it, it is famous for a reason. The sheer size and the depth of the canyon is actually really difficult for your eyes to even take in. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's just something you have to experience, which is why it's one of the most visited national wonders in the world. The park is massive, and it's separated by its north rim and its south rim. The temperatures between these areas can be dramatically different. All the times that I have been, I have shed layers, I have put more layers on. The climate changes constantly, so just be prepared for anything. This is us at the Grand Canyon today. Knew it was going to be cold, didn't know it was going to snow, but still prepared appropriately, so that's good. You can also bring leash dogs on the rim trail, which is pretty rare for national parks, and it's the best trail for seeing the rim. It's decently accessible, about a 4.5-hour drive from Las Vegas or a 2-hour drive from Flagstaff, and surprisingly you can actually see some decent wildlife in the park. We were able to see elk, bighorn sheep, deer, and loads of ravens. You can also see the highly endangered California condors in some areas of the park, but unfortunately whenever I visited I didn't see any. And last bit of advice, do not miss a sunset at the Grand Canyon. It is an experience you will never forget. Pinnacles is one of the newer parks that's been added to the National Park Service, and so therefore it's not as busy as a lot of the other California parks. Famous for being home of one of the most endangered birds, the California condor. And although I failed to see them at the Grand Canyon, I was actually able to see some at Pinnacles, which was absolutely incredible. They also have a lot of turkey vultures, and so we were watching the turkey vultures circle above, and you think that turkey vultures are pretty big, but then once you see a condor next to a turkey vulture, the size difference is just insane. I also really enjoyed camping here. I was able to get a campsite that was in a quiet spot next to the river, which was really relaxing. Although they definitely have a raccoon problem. A problem for some, maybe not a problem for others. Personally, I absolutely loved watching the raccoons come out at night and kind of go through the campsites. Obviously, they know that campers have food, so just make sure to put all your food away. And even though I packed away everything really, really well, I still had raccoons coming and kind of sniffing through things while I was sitting in my campsite. So just make sure you pack your food away and don't be a part of the problem. Winter and spring is the best time to visit since temperatures are more mild and most of the trails are open. It's not too far from major cities, San Francisco and San Jose being about a 2-hour drive away, but it still feels like it's kind of far. My perception of Badlands before we visited was that it was just going to be an average park. Although fossils and geographic rock formations are interesting to me, I thought that would be what most of the park was. However, I was pleasantly surprised by all the wildlife that we saw. If I were just to rank parks on wildlife alone, Badlands would actually probably be in the top 3. Almost immediately, as soon as we got to the entrance. So we're just driving to our campsite now at the Badlands, and we went to go pull up to the sign to just take a couple pictures. And as we were doing that, we realized that we were just surrounded by all these prairie dogs everywhere, so we stopped, we took some pictures. And then we also realized in the background that there was a herd of bison, so we got our binoculars and looked out that way. Couldn't get any footage of the bison because they're way too far, but we were able at least to see them through the binoculars. But it was just crazy that we literally just got to the sign of Badlands National Park and there was already all this wildlife to greet us. And also we heard some coyotes in the background, so it's gonna be a really good trip here, I think. Just to be sure to bring binoculars or a zoom lens in order to see the cuteness all up close. We stayed at a campground that was a primitive campground. So it wasn't very exciting since it was essentially just a flat area with no privacy to camp. But it still had prairie dogs everywhere and even bison in the distance. They were just so cute to watch them tumbling around in their little family units, and I filmed them for hours. The morning we left, we drove to the main areas of the park, and even though we didn't set off that early, we saw so much wildlife. Pronghorn antelope, a coyote, turkeys, bald eagles, and so many bison and prairie dogs. I wouldn't say Badlands is a really accessible park, but it is close to a town called Wall, which has a famous restaurant and store, which is a separate trip all on its own. Can confirm the cookies are delicious. Definitely get them. But Badlands massively exceeded my expectations, and I really wish I would have spent more than 24 hours in the park. I might get some hate for putting Yellowstone on the list this low, but I think it's because of the type of visitors that it brings to the park. Look, I'm all for giving complete public access to areas of natural beauty because it speaks to the importance of preserving these natural areas. But for me, in some areas of Yellowstone, I just felt like it was kind of a theme park. If you really want to get your blood pressure up, go look at the Instagram page Tour Runs of Yellowstone. You'll see what I mean. But I had to keep it in the top 10 because I really did have some peaceful and beautiful moments in the park. The biodiversity and wildlife were incredible despite the throngs of tour buses all over the park. Yellowstone is just massive, and there's just all these really cool areas. There's mountains, there's beautiful lakes. Obviously there's the famous geothermal features, so there's just so many areas of Yellowstone that you can explore. But day 2, we're still just finding so many geysers. I feel like you could explore Yellowstone forever and still not see all of them. It's just insane. And they're all different, like all of them different colors, different smells, different like levels of boil, and it's just really interesting. I spent about 3 days here, and honestly, you can spend a week. There's also so much wildlife to see. We saw bison at every turn. Unfortunately for me, some of the types of tourists just kind of take away from the natural beauty of the place and the amazing wildlife that it has to offer. I was lucky enough to see Acadia in arguably one of the most beautiful times of the year to visit. We had planned a trip to New England for October, and we were lucky enough to be there during the peak of leaves changing. This was also before I decided to do YouTube, so a lot of the videos that I took are in portrait. We did a few trails, and especially one was really memorable, and that was the Precipice Loop. It was not easy by any means, more of a rock climb than a trail, but I loved the challenge. You gain about 1,000 feet of elevation in less than a mile, so it's definitely a hard one, but so rewarding at the top. Honestly, I'd rate it in the top 3 of my all-time favorite hikes. We also did the Beehive Trail, which is an easier version of the Precipice Loop, and we did it before sunrise, so we could be some of the first in the US to see the sunrise. There's stunning coastline, beautiful forest, and lots of lookout points throughout. Although Acadia is coming up to be one of the busiest national parks, according to one of the rangers that we spoke to, it's easy to spread yourself around in all the different areas. The park next to Sequoia is Kings Canyon, and in my opinion, the quieter of the two. You can still see sequoia trees, but you also get huge areas of the park that were really spread out, and it felt more quiet and spread out than Sequoia. I got to camp in this amazing location right next to a river, and we spent the evening swimming in the river with a beer in hand, and in my opinion, that is one of the best ways to spend your time when camping. There's also a stunning valley that goes along, and it just feels really, really epic. There's also a lot of wildfire damage in this park as well, so just keep that in mind when you're planning your hikes. I feel like I don't even want to share this one because it really is a hidden gem in California's national parks. The best way to describe Lassen Volcanic is like a smaller Yellowstone with no crowds. There are geothermal features, all 4 types of volcanoes, and a lot of different ecosystems throughout the park. And this has by far been my favorite hike that we've done so far. I think it's going to be pretty hard to top this. It was just so incredible with all these different types of ecosystems. We started in forests, we went through rivers, went through beautiful wildflower meadows, and then ended up above the alpines at the very top at 9,200 feet. So this hike is called Broke Off Point, or Broke Off Peak. That was it, Broke Off Peak. And I highly recommend it. I actually kind of feel like I don't want to tell anybody about it because there wasn't a lot of people on it. And yeah, just really beautiful. It's on the smaller side of parks, so it's really easy to see everything in a short amount of time. It's kind of far from any major cities, which makes it far less visited than other California parks. We stayed at a campsite on the edge of a lake, and it was so quiet and peaceful. I even got in a morning cold plunge, which felt amazing after 5 days of camping. There's just so much packed into this small park, and with low crowds, I was a big fan. Colorado just has a special place in my heart, and I've been lucky to visit Rocky Mountain National Park 3 times, so I feel like I've seen a good portion of the park. Estes Park is nearby, and it's a popular town that you can go to. You can even see elk wandering around the town, so that can give you an indication about how much wildlife you can see within the park itself. I've done some fairly difficult hiking here, and the rewards are mountain lakes and even glaciers with stunning views. Although it's busy, there are so many trails throughout the park, and you can find quieter ones if you want to. Because the Rockies sit at such a high elevation, be prepared for weather changes at any time of the year. I hiked at the end of May and a snowstorm blew in, and there were people at the beginning of the trail in shorts and t-shirts, so just don't be those people. This huge wave of cloud just came in, and man, it's cold. The temperature must have just dropped like 30 degrees Fahrenheit in literally like 5 minutes. It's just crazy. I've been in spring and in fall, and to be honest, I loved both of them, so I feel like any time of the year you go, you're gonna love Rocky Mountain National Park. This might be another one that you would be surprised why I'm ranking so high, but it truly is unlike any park. First off, heed the name, do not visit in the summer. You'll feel like you're being roasted alive. It is the hottest place on earth, seriously. It's absolutely gigantic at 5,270 square miles, and honestly it feels at times like you're on Mars with the landscape and how isolated it is. I went in February and March, and even in March the temperatures were getting high in the afternoon. The best time of the year is definitely winter. You'll have a higher chance of seeing wildlife, and you get stunning views of snow-capped Telescope Peak. There are sand dunes, beautiful painted rocks, valleys of wildflowers in spring, and we even got to do some bouldering on the trails. I feel like when people think of Death Valley, they just think that it's just this arid desert, and it is, but it's just so much more biodiverse than what you think it would be, which is why it's one of my faves. You know this one's gonna be in the top 3. I was honestly really skeptical of why this was a favorite park for so many, but the way that everyone was talking about how beautiful it is, it kind of made me feel like it was going to be overrated, but it is a favorite for a reason. All of my skepticisms completely disappeared once I saw that first view of Tunnel View. When we went, it was really poor visibility for the first couple of days. It is full on rain. But I don't mind it because there's nobody here, so we got it all to ourselves. And then at the end of our second day, after a full day of hiking, the clouds finally dissipated and we were able to see Tunnel View for the first time. And wow, just wow. There are no words. And I don't mean to brag, but I have been all over the world and seen some incredible views. And Yosemite Valley is easily at the top of that list. I could easily have spent weeks exploring all the different areas of Yosemite, from the sequoia tree groves to Tuolumne Meadows, to Yosemite Valley with El Capitan, Half Dome, and Bridalveil Falls in view. If you're lucky enough to get a campsite in Yosemite Valley, you'll be close to all the most beautiful areas of the park, and you'll be able to see the best spots before the crowds come. If you were looking for variety in a park, this is it, and this is why it gets a 10 out of 10 for biodiversity. Wild beaches, lush rainforest, snow-capped peaks, it has everything. Unfortunately, I only spent 1 day in this park, which tells you the impression that it had on me considering it is in my top 2 on this list. I have this really clear memory of Dominic and I sitting on a log next to a river, and there's a bald eagle soaring above, there's a deer on the other side of the river munching on some vegetation. It was just perfect. We also got to see some sockeye salmon swimming upstream in the rainforest. It was just perfection in nature. We got to end the day on the coast with rocks and conifers lining the beach, and it was exactly like what you picture a northwest coastline to look like. I went in January, so probably lucky with the crowds, or it could be that it's just out of the way for the average visitor. I feel like I only scratched the surface of Olympic, so I cannot wait to go back one day. So here we are. Before I tell you my favorite national park, if you've made it this far, please do me a favor and give this video a like, or even better, hit that subscribe button to really help me grow my channel. It really helps me out and it's completely free. So my favorite national park I have visited is... I really didn't have any expectations because I feel like it was overshadowed by its more famous, more crowded neighbor, Yellowstone, but the park had everything that I love. The wildlife was unlike anything I'd seen. I actually kind of made like a list of wildlife that I wanted to see in my head, and we saw everything but one. On one 6-mile hike alone, we saw moose, black bear and cubs, elk, marmots, and bald eagles. Then on another day, we hiked along the Snake River and saw a river otter and later in the day a grizzly bear. We went in May and we camped for 5 nights. Although it was a little chilly and rainy, I still loved it. I'd love to go back to the park in the fall and see all the colors, and also go back with a better zoom lens in order to capture the wildlife that we saw. Honestly, I still smile about this trip because seeing wildlife, if you can't tell by now, is one of my favorite experiences when I'm out in nature. And that's probably why Tetons is so high on my list, but it was just such an amazing experience. Also, seeing the Teton mountain range for the first time when you're driving along that highway is just jaw-dropping. I mean, I love a snow-capped mountain, and this was the pinnacle of them. Okay, so this is about 4.5 hours later. I'm losing all of the daylights. I will end my video here. Please let me know in the comments which one is your favorite, even if it's ones that have not been included on this list. I'd be interested to know what you think. And now that I'm settled in our new home in the UK, I have been visiting some national parks here, so it'll be interesting to see how they compare, and also some trips I'm planning for Europe in the summer. So if you're interested in seeing more videos like this, you can click on this playlist here to see some videos of the national parks that I've mentioned in this video, also with some camping involved. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to leave it better than you found it, and I will see you next time. Find a place to sit, buddy. You're just interrupting. Man, I was gonna send this to Malachi to be like how cool we are, but now you look like a noob.
You're a noob. You got that.
There it is. Nice butt. You can park inside the park. Oh, whatever. Started?
Yeah. Yeah, absolute whopper.